Well, hello, that's me again. Today is February 11th, 2025. It is Tuesday, I believe, and there is a lot to discuss, honestly, guys. And so let's start with the big one, so to speak. And evidently, my last video, which is called Ledger Domain, actually it's all about this fluffy rhetoric emanating from Washington D.C. and from Trump administration regarding the settling as he wants to, the crisis in Ukraine, the stop special military operation, because obviously by now we shouldn't be constantly reiterating the main point that they do not want the war stopped. They want the war frozen for a while, and then they think, due to them being illiterate and incapable militarily and strategically people, that somehow they can rearm Ukraine and things will, resume, and then they finally defeat Russia, break up, Russian Federation by means of, basically, removing Putin from power and things of this nature. It's all kindergarten by people who literally do not know what they are doing. But let's start with the simple thing, and this is statements today by none other than Mr. Peskov. Mr. Peskov being the spokesperson for Kremlin, of course. And here what he's talking about, you can go to his Telegram channel or the Telegram channel of the Mayak, which is a beacon in Russian, famous Russian Soviet also radio station. And this is what he's talking about. And Peskov just goes, straight for the jugular. The Kremlin has no information about the arrival in Moscow of Steve Witkoff. Whoever this guy is, evidently some other guy who's supposed to represent United States and, convince Russians that they have to stop, attacking. Well, there is no information, and we are not planning any contacts. We said that we are having contacts through various departments. They have indeed intensified, as we have already said, as the administration is also establishing its activities in Washington. But in this case, there is nothing on the Ukrainian settlement. So, and, how else you can explain it? It cannot get any clearer. This is like black and white, high contrast statements. But evidently, Mr. Trump stated, and New York Post informed us that he somehow spoke to Putin. Well, if he spoke to Putin, first, if he started to do this publicly, while the other side refrains from commenting on that, it means one very interesting thing. Probably this conversation, if it ever had took place, was negotiated to be private. But Mr. Trump, he just went out and said, yeah, I spoke to Putin, and then he produced this platitude that, he wants to stop the war. Everybody wants to stop the war. There is no need to, basically kill whatever is left of the Ukrainian nation, but the killing continues. And here is another thing. Mr. Trump evidently, as was the case with the Mr. Mattis, the Mad Dog Mattis, who was the, Secretary of Defense in Trump administration, who was, he's, straight up, just tough U.S. Marine general and things like that. Mr. Kellogg, as an envoy, he is utterly unfit to do anything about it, apart from the fact that he definitely influences Trump himself. And the fact that U.S. side cannot get their numbers straight and facts straight already tells you not only about the undercover, so to speak, under the carpet, fight of the different factions in Trump administration, which already kind of, impedes him to develop in terms of developing any kind of the sound policy when dealing with Russia. But yeah, those people are shysters. And how we know this? Well, I wrote about this kind of piece in my blog, but it's worth mentioning it again and elaborating a little bit. Well, who is Mr. Kit Kellogg? Apart from being the American general, that means the guy who never won any war, and considering his age and his background, he doesn't even know what modern war is. He will not grasp it, and so here's the envoy. And Washington Post, in one of rare occasions while doing some kind of the actual reporting, then, well, that's what they say. America's Ukraine war in why is no doubt on Russia. Neither is his daughter. Yeah, we know that he's not dove on Russia because being ignorant guy and American general, he is, he has to face, if he's not complete moron, the possibility that he's gonna be looking in the face of Russian generals if he comes to Moscow or wherever the place will be chosen to have any kind of conversations, and they will be looking at him like a flea. And because he is nobody militarily, and he cannot represent and have any leverage on Russia because the United States itself is already in the complete military decline. And so what they say, actually, Washington Post, is this. This is very interesting. But Kellogg is no dove in Russia, and neither is his offspring. Kellogg's daughter is Megan Mobs, a president of the RT Weatherman. You can easily Google this organization, so to speak, foundation, and a graduate of West Point. The Ukrainians might not have the better friend than Mobs. The RT Weatherman Foundation has been present in Ukraine since the start of the war. Its efforts include establishing and running a logistics hub on the Romanian-Ukraine border and delivering more than 10,000 pallets of medicines, medical supplies, and other aid to over 78 organizations and hospitals in Russia, in Ukraine. And here comes this interesting thing. Besides delivering aid, the foundation helps evacuate American volunteer soldiers fighting in Ukraine to the U.S. military Landstuhl Regional Medical Center in Germany, where they can receive specialized medical care. It also repatriates the bodies of American volunteers killed in combat. Well, it's not just medicine they provide there, of course, but that tells you everything you need to know. Not only United States is a party to this war, which Russian side insists non-stop, because it is the US war and European chihuahuas, and probably they bear the same share of responsibility in this slaughter of Ukrainian nation or whatever is left of it. But yeah, even Mr. Kellogg's daughter and his family are directly involved in making money through all those, probably very juicy Pentagon and other orgs, contracts. Some of it probably this from their now not defunct, but yeah, they kind of impeded operations of the USAID. So yeah, United States is directly involved there, supplying, including things which are not mentioned in the Washington Post article, that they're doing more than just medicine and things of this nature, apart from the fact that of doing the med evac, so to speak, operations. And if that's not direct involvement, I don't know what is. And this is Kellogg, Mr. Kellogg, this American 80-year-old general who would try, allegedly, that's what Trump thinks, because obviously Mr. Peskov already stated very clearly that there are no contacts. There's nothing there. And the reason there is nothing there, the same as there are any contacts on the issue of the START 3, the strategic offensive weapons negotiation with the United States, because the United States has no leverage. None. Zilch. They can obviously try to, sabotage economically. That's what they can try, but I don't think so it's going to work. It didn't work before, and it's not going to work further down the road. So, here it is. You have no hand, essentially, in the game of poker or whatever the people play in the card games. I'm not a big player in cards. So, and that's the result. Now, we have Mrs. Zakharova, who actually goes and explains to people who still do not get it. And these are people who do not get it, are war criminals from the Western media. I say this, that they are war criminals because first, they are state-run propaganda, and they are responsible in a large sense for what is happening, which is the killing on the scale not since World War II. And you cannot explain this to any American or British journal because they are just scum of the earth. The cesspool of their, as I already stated, war criminals. But so she tells today that Zelensky in the interview with Guardian said that he would offer Russia a direct exchange of territories, abandoning the lands that Kyiv hosts in Kursk region. But he has not yet decided what part to ask Russia for its return. In the Kursk region, she says, neo-Nazis operating there are waiting for land, for ground, essentially. That's what she said. Without any exchange, with an area of about 1 meter by 2.5 meters deep. Yeah, Zelensky makes such statement to hide the true scale of the disaster for the armed forces of Ukraine in this direction. Yes, I spoke about Kursk situation yesterday. I even showed you map, and they've been squeezed out, and it is a total death knell for whole combined arms army. But here we have the very famous, actually, Russian reporter, Mr. Podubny. And here it is. He shows in his video actually what is happening. Again, it's a grim picture. Piles, literally piles of the corpses of those dragged and, prodded from the behind Ukrainian soldiers everywhere, including the complete fields of the burned equipment. And here he says the things which somebody has to tell Trump. Kellogg will not understand that. He's an American general. He's not educated. He has no clue, a grasp of this type of war. And here it is, a natural end of the thoughtless and futile attack by the enemy in Kursk border area. It's another one which they undertook yesterday. Dozens of pieces of military equipment are burning. The fate of the crew is clear. Here, the overall figures for the losses of the Ukrainian armed forces should not impress, but rather stun. And the first of all, Ukrainian society. According to official data alone, during the time that fighting is ongoing in the Kursk operational direction, the enemy has lost almost 60,000 people. The West, of course, doesn't give a damn about this data. If they care about anything, it's about material damage. And yes, so there are no normal humans actually now operating in the West who even, can grasp. Certainly no American high-level officer in Pentagon, let alone those European military chihuahuas, can grasp this. They do not understand what is happening. They don't have reference point. And as I already stated, on the record, you can quote me, American or Western military education is a joke. They do not prepare competent officers who understand the modern war. And this is not about, for example, about the drone warfare, as everybody, just thinks that, oh my God, it's a new word in the armed conflict. Well, it's the natural development of the weapon systems, and what can I say? It just continues to develop, as you can see yourself. The drones fly in. These are Russian drones. Obviously, the recon learns where the Ukrainians hide their remnants of their equipment. They hide them behind, all kinds of the buildings, including hiding many of their warriors, so to speak, including the so-called volunteers from the United States, France, and other European countries. They hide behind civilians. They also commit atrocities there by raping, executing, and things of this nature. So, and as you might understand, Russian society in general has a very specific, so to speak, attitude towards all those proceedings on part of NATO, for example. But here it is, those drones just now fly anywhere they want, and they will kill you. And Russians produce it in enormous numbers, and the actually production of all kinds of drones is increasing dramatically every month. And if you take a look at, for example, data from the Rosstat about the Russian economy, and especially industrial sector, you will see astonishing number. It grew up 9.8%. So we're looking at the economic expansion, which not only is not only the military production, but all kinds of the adjacent industries, ranging from extraction to processing, manufacturing, and things of this nature. For example, Russians already rolled out the first full operational PD-8 engines, apart from PD-14, which is being produced already in serial production and is going to be installed on the MS-21. Actually, it is being installed on MS-21 aircraft. Now we have the PD-8, which starts its final tests before being installed on Russian Sukhoi Superjet. So, and this is just, part of the issue. And this is why, for example, after you go and look into my blog, you will see yourself my opinions, and I wrote about it, about, for example, the lady who teaches strategy, Sarah Payne, in the no less than US Naval War College, and she has a degree in humanities. How she can teach strategy, I don't know, but she's absolutely ignorant on the situation around the world, and especially about Russia. Yet here we are, we have all those nincompoops who, it's an echo chamber of people who do not understand what they're talking about. And here is the little bit more about it. We have now French. Yes, French, this victorious nation. I'm being facetious, of course, and sorry, I have some French friends, but who actually smart enough people who take this with the irony and, with the humor. But here is the issue, how degenerate those people are. Here's Mr. Renaud Girard. Yalta is in the air. He talks about it on the February 3, which is 8 days ago, in no less than Figaro. And so he talks about Yalta is the symbol of diplomacy, where the big divide the world among themselves without bothering to consult the small ones. 80 years later, with Putin's Russia and Trump America powers that have once again become openly imperialist, history seems to be starting again. Well, I have news for Mr. Girard, which is understandable. French haven't been present in Yalta because militarily their contribution was zero, almost zero, even considering the fact of the Gulf forces and, of course, the legendary, heroic, absolutely glorious regiment Normandy Niemen. But that's pretty much was it. More, French provided very many people for Wehrmacht and Waffen-SS division, Charlemagne. So, and the guy don't understand. Yalta was a meeting of the victors. How France factors in, nobody cares. But, and again, how can you, negotiate anything in Yalta when, in order for you to negotiate anything in Yalta, Russians have to negotiate with themselves? United States is not a victor in this particular case, and in this case the Yalta analogy does not apply at all. In fact, United States stands as the biggest loser, apart from the physical annihilation of Ukraine, and with it, those chihuahuas like France, like United Kingdom, they are losers. And in this particular case, there is no discussion of any kind of Yalta type thing. It will be, as I already stated, dictating of the conditions for the surrender, essentially. And that is why we have so much talk and no action whatsoever. They literally have nothing to offer. What can possibly Mr. Trump offer to Mr. Putin? Unless, of course, it's Margarita Simonyan, who still thinks that the relations could be restored. But then again, she has no education. How the hell she became the chief editor of the RT, I don't know. And RT obviously freely interprets things about, for example, Russian diplomacy, not even translating them properly. But here we are. And so what we have in this case is this. If you take a look, Mr. Trump, well, before we go though, I need to point, to you there what is happening in terms of losses. As you can see yourself, today's losses of Ukraine armed forces are 1,460. So you have million plus already confirmed killed. How many wounded and maimed, we don't know, but even Europeans begin to worry that they will have the influx of the Ukrainian soldier with PTSD. Yes, they will, and Europe wanted it, so it has to deal with it. I already, can imagine people coming out in the comments say, "Oh, you hate Europeans." No, I don't hate Europeans. I hate European elites. I hate what Europe has become, and what Europe has become, it produced in 20th century 2 world wars, which saw unprecedented atrocity and the mass killing and death camps, concentration camps, and things of that. That's Europe. And that's the result. They are now basically, as I already stated many times, the special military operation are the final salvos of the World War II. It is the final, these are the final salvos of the contraction and suicide of the West, which happened throughout the 20th century. Keep in mind, we are merely people. If I will live to 70, good Lord, I lasted longer than I expected. But the point is that states, and especially civilizations, they do not move within their, decade or so, albeit sometimes indeed events develop so fast that you can see yourself that the world changes in front of your eyes, but that those changes have been precipitated, and what we observe today in 20th century in Europe committing the suicide and homicide on the unprecedented scale. These were Germans, these were French, these were the Dutch, these were Italians, Romanians, who went into the West and killed 27 million people, most of them civilians. There you go. And guess what? You think so? It's all fine and dandy. Russians try to stretch the hand of trust and peace to Germany. Germans obviously betrayed Russians. So there you go. So there's nothing to talk about. And as the result, we are looking at the collapse of the world, which was the result of those two world wars. And we see, for example, United Nations becoming this League of Nations, essentially. Useless, organization for the chatting, the speeches, which mean absolutely nothing. In the end, as always, the power balance decides everything. And the United States begins to kind of feel it, and you see, here we go back to this Kellogg guy. Trump poses Ukraine peace plan to hold talks with NATO allies. Exactly. He poses it, peace plan, because there is no peace plan, and he needs to talk with NATO allies because he needs to hide the fact that Mr. Kellogg will be laughed out of the room with Russians, because Mr. Kellogg has no clue what he is talking about and what he is dealing with. Expected, as I already stated many times. And now we have this situation, and this is more serious. So as you can see yourself, first we get the information about the shadow fleet. Brian McDonald, wonderful Brian McDonald, excellent journalist, rather reporter. The word journalism is kind of offensive, actually, and insulting. Some people call me journalist. Go screw yourself, people. I'm no journalist. I do some reporting, that for sure. And he's talking about that the EU is reportedly discussing ways to seize Russian oil tankers in the Baltic under shaky pretext. These plans could block 50% of Moscow oil export and risk serious escalation. Here's the breakdown. He talks about under all this stupid pretext about environmental risks because they cannot stop Russian tankers passing through the Danish Straits in accordance to the Copenhagen Treaty of 1857. So now they pretend that there's an environmental risk. Obviously it will be piracy laws. And this is what West does because it has no honor, integrity. It is basically now a criminal organization, and we have to call it as it is. So he talks about Russia's potential responses, and he talks about armed escorts, which Russians can do. Russians have the very capable Baltic fleet there, legal action, new routes, and things of this nature. This isn't just about Russia. Moves like this undermine international maritime law, destabilize global shipping, and can create chaos for everyone. Absolutely, I agree with Brian. Now we have the news from SVR. So Russia's foreign intelligence service, and they are talking about which is only natural for NATO, only natural for people from Washington and elsewhere, because that the only thing they can do is terrorism. That's the only thing they have. They cannot fight a real war, so terrorism is the weapon of the weak. And West is weak now, so they will resort to terrorism. So what do we have? Ukrainian special services with Western support, I can sense immediately, MI6, are preparing a series of high-profile provocations to implicate Moscow and draw NATO into a direct military confrontation, according to the Russian Foreign Intelligence Service, SVR. In a statement on Tuesday, the SVR claimed that Kyiv plans to use Russian-made naval mines to orchestrate an explosion involving a foreign vessel vessel in the Baltic Sea. Absolutely, it is totally natural. The alleged goal is to blame Moscow and prompt NATO to restrict Russian access to the Baltic on the pretext of ensuring maritime security. Well, and here comes this issue. Can actually West really, restrict Russian access to Baltic or start doing the piracy? No. And the question is not only legal. As I already stated, the only task of Ukraine, and they may succeed, is to, get NATO involved, because that's how they think, and their supporters, who are primarily, war criminals and shysters and all kinds of people from London and Washington, D.C. They don't have any understanding of modern war, but Russia can respond, and NATO will be defeated. And if it goes to military responses. And guess what? Read my lips. Russia is ready for the war with NATO. What's going to happen to Europe? Nobody cares. If it goes nuclear, well, so be it. We have been around this, situation for a while now. And if they want to commit suicide, Russia will oblige and will turn Paris and London into the parking lot. This is simple as that. But and by the way, Russians may actually survive, unlike it's going to be the case with Europeans, who actually are only now begin to wake up when it begins to touch their economic interests. Yes, Europe will become poor. This is just reality, nothing we can do about it. So don't, try to spit in my direction that I said so. Europeans are going to be poor. They're already getting poor. And so it's an excellent, thing thinking of the United States, which wants to create a Weimar, repeat Weimar for the whole of Europe, and then of course those poor and to a degree hungry masses will be directed towards the east, to get those Russians and their resources, and that's the idea. Of course, it's a bad idea, and it's a one-trick pony thinking, but that's what it is. And Russians obviously can respond. So, in 2022, which is actually a little bit early at that time, was that in proceedings, some German naval officers, they started talking about, you see, it was December 2022. It was the time when everybody thought that, Russians are being defeated, and all this propaganda from all those, discredited and embarrassing people like Ben Hodges and Breedlove or whoever, thinking about that, Russia is going to collapse just any minute now. So they talk about that the fundamental problem for naval planners remain the same. Avoid planning and exercising for yesterday's war. Square all domain with war at sea. Appreciate modern technologies without overestimating their efficacy in combat. Well, guess what? There was the problem with this issue immediately. Not only they not overestimated, they underestimated the technological shift, and especially in naval warfare, so much that obviously this article, which is now, 2+ years, it's absolutely unapplicable for the reality of what, for example, Ukraine and their curators from MI6 and CIA want to conduct in Baltic. So, and they talk about that they need to get the urgency of getting the balance right in terms of the naval warfare, and being Germans, of course, that means what? Baltic Sea. So, and what can I say? So they developed this idea and arrived to these conclusions, which, for example, it kind of, this is the type of the article which is called against everything bad for everything good, and all those buzzwords, hot button issues. But they talk about it. Western navies also must ask how they can avoid being targeted in a big data world. I can tell you immediately, they cannot avoid it. And conversely, how they can fool artificial intelligence systems analyzing their unavoidable data trails to present false targets. Not all these questions are for cyber nerds, they are questions for naval tacticians too. Yes, how about they learn about what is their targeting, how the obsolescence of the information happens, how it is addressed, and why, for example, the modern weapons which Russia deploys today in including in Baltic, they really do not care about obsolete data, targeting data, even if it is half an hour or hour old. Why it is? It's the matter of their naval tactics and understanding of the targeting, including by the means of their recon systems, such as Liana, and these are satellites. And the Russians have many satellites well, they're out there, and they're covering this theater of operations extremely well, and they have all necessary data, including visual and radar data. So, and they talk about, since the Falkland Wars, European navies generally have trained in the skills of classic warfare at sea. Exercise scenarios cover engagement between submarine ships and naval aircraft. So, and here comes the issue. They present in this article this map, for example. They get this map from Kaliningrad, and obviously, as you can see yourself, it's already a little bit obsolete in terms that, if you take a look at just Kaliningrad alone, they talk about the ranges of the Bastion, K300P, which is in yellow, which is wrong, and the reason it is wrong because they use the range of around 300 kilometers. You have to understand that actually the Bastion and for example SS-26 Iskanders, they have the ranges of their missiles in 1,000 kilometers, let alone when we talk about 3M22 Zircon. And if you take a look attentively at the shoulder, which I showed you, these people, these German guys who really wrote this article, they are simply, I mean, I don't know. It didn't age well, to put it mildly, but as always, they get their data wrong. This is what NATO does. They have no clue about real capabilities. That is why they were shocked into observing what they observed today. And here's the shoulder for the Baltic Fleet alone. And the 6th Army of VKS Army, Airspace Forces, which of course, yeah, you have those, all those wonderful Su-35s and Su-37s, SM and SM which are capable of carrying just about anything. And of course, Kinzhals. This is the shoulder. It's minuscule. That gives you the actual scale of the Baltic Sea. And it's merely 416 miles or 670 kilometers. Just to give you one basically understanding of the range. Bastion actually operates the P-800 missiles, which are Onyx, and they have the range. Older version, they have 800 kilometer range. Modern version, they have range in excess of 1,000 kilometers. I don't know how those guys who were saying all those right words about, you know, being up to date and understanding the issue from the Bundesmarine, or whatever the hell the name of the German Navy, they evidently do not even operate with proper data. So what's worse of this article, strategically and operationally? It's garbage, it's trash, because it doesn't understand what it's talking about. Now let me show you, for example, the range of the Zircon, which could be launched from St. Petersburg area, and it's 1,500 kilometer range. So if they want to operate within this environment, which also is supported by, as I already stated, 6th Army of VKS, which is Aerospace Forces, and Baltic Fleet, and forces which are attached in the forming now Leningrad military district, I have a bridge to sell to them, not a single ship of the NATO navies, including US Navy. They cannot obviously put the carriers there, they will be fat, prestigious targets, will survive a real confrontation. But these guys, as I already stated, the shocking revelation for Russians was, it was the fact of the extremely low professional level of the NATO militaries, US Army and US armed forces in general, including. This is unbelievable, and this is what I'll just demonstrate it to you just by mere fact of stating ranges, which I already confirmed, and actually Zircon was used together with Kinzhal hypersonic weapons to a devastating effect, and there is nothing they can stop it with. Zero, zilch. But yes, they still talk about those buzzwords, and I hate buzzwords. I hate all this, what pretense of strategic thinking, or when you have people actually who go there with humanities degrees and think that because they know some facts and juxtapose those facts as they need to sell their BS, that somehow it has any value in terms of their describing the reality of the, well, geopolitical situation. It's garbage. All of it is garbage. And that is why, very few people, for example, dare to talk to me. I say I'm open to debate with anybody. If they want to come here, hey, let's talk. Let's talk operations. Let's talk about the real data. No way. Mr. Kellogg and his posing of his mission, which never was any mission, and Russians openly stated, so, well, basically it's all BS. They just, say things just to say things, to impress people. And because there's never no mission and there's no plan. There was never any plan in existence because they have zero leverage. The only thing they have is piracy, terrorism, and that's about it. And as we know, terrorism is the weapon of the weak. And that's exactly what the combined West is. So this is what I wanted to tell you about today without going too long. And as you can see yourself, I'm beginning to kind of, splash into this territory of 37 minutes. I can go 40, but again, I want to keep those things within 30 minutes because it is usually very dense with information, and people begin to lose their attention. And I need your opinion in the comments. What is the format? Obviously, as you might expect, I can do it for an hour, but it's also a very much longer issue of uploading videos to YouTube, especially in the resolution in which I'm doing it, which everybody evidently is satisfied. So guys, this is everything I needed to tell you today. And as always, in conclusion, those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel, and those who can afford, please support me on Patreon or buy me a coffee too. That will allow me to continue to do what I am doing. So have a nice rest of the week, and I'll talk to you later, guys. Bye-bye.